Welcome back to CBS Sports HQ, brought to you by Papa John's. Better ingredients, better pizza. Jeremy St. Louis alongside Danny Kanell and Bryant McFadden. BMAC, the temperatures at Lambeau are expected to dip into the single digits with a manageable wind of 5 to 10 miles per hour on Saturday night. What kind of impact will the cold have on the Niners and, more importantly, on less than 100% quarterback Jimmy G?
It may take some time for them to get acclimated to the conditions. Coming from the West Coast, not necessarily playing in single-digit weather, it might take some time. And when you first walk out in those type of conditions, I'm gonna keep it real with you. It's going to open your eyes a little bit. I mean, you might walk out the tunnel and think you might be prepared, layered up, and you might walk back into the locker room because it's too cold. But by the time of the ball game kickoff and you're starting to flow around, your blood is circulating through your body, you should be okay. But clearly the advantage goes to the Packers. They play in this weather all the time. And because of that, I wouldn't be surprised to see a fast start by the home team because they're more acclimated to the conditions compared to a slow start by the road team.
BMAC, I'm with you on everything you said. I do think it's interesting, too, for Jimmy G, and what's going to make it tougher for him is all those nicks and bruises, like those kinks he's got in his body right now. Man, those take a lot longer to get warmed up. You know, there's pain medication you can take for those types of things. They don't seem to quite work quite as well. They wear off a little bit faster. So I think it is a big deal, and it's harder to grip the ball. And I think BMAC, the thing he hit on, it was kind of similar last week. You saw some of these teams traveling into cold environments where it's not exactly that type of climate in San Francisco. It is a shock to the system. I mean, I played in Denver. We went to Kansas City. Denver's pretty cold. We went to a game where the wind chill was below zero. And I remember in warm-ups, Jeremy, you have those muffs that you keep your hands in, and just taking it out to throw the ball, put it back in, throw the ball. After about 5 throws, just a little bit of exposure in between, I couldn't feel my hands. Like it impacts you. But I think the one thing where it's not as big of a deal is that the 49ers don't want Jimmy Garoppolo to throw it 40 times. They would like to limit him, maybe throw it about 25. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. And the wind is always way worse than the cold. You can put a jacket on, you can have those hand warmers, you can do all that. Without the wind being significant, it shouldn't be that big of a factor.
Well, and as you guys can both attest to, I mean, when you're playing on that type of a surface that's frozen ground, when you get tackled, it's like getting tackled on pavement. So
some of these stadiums now do have the heated surfaces, which is pretty amazing technology, where it's not as rock hard as it used to be. Because if you fell on frozen, the frozen tundra, the way it was, 20, 30 years ago, it felt like you were falling on concrete. I do believe, I'd have to research this, Jeremy, but I think Green Bay has a heated surface so it doesn't freeze over like that.
So it just doesn't hurt, just that little bit extra.
The game's changed so many ways. These players are softer. Tell them, B-Mac. We used to have to go out there and brave the elements.
No question.
Danny, this game has the largest point spread of any of the games. That'll happen when you get a 6 seed meeting a 1 seed. So what do the Niners need to do to overcome Green Bay and their quarterback, who you said this week right here on HQ has no visible weaknesses?
Oh, I think it's pretty easy game plan for what Kyle Shanahan wants to do, and was similar to what they did against Dallas last week. They want to come in and they want to be physical, and they want to establish the run game up front early. And if you can stay ahead of the chains, say in 3rd down and manageable, Kyle Shanahan's offense works a lot of play action pass, even with the bootleg, getting Jimmy Garoppolo outside the pocket. They need to establish the run game up front against the Green Bay Packers. And not only does it help your offensive line get in rhythm, it keeps the ball out of Jimmy G's hands. Guess who else is not having the ball when you're running the football? It's Aaron Rodgers on the other side. And then for defensively, I think the key is trying to keep Aaron Rodgers out of his rhythm, because once he gets hot, and really anytime, even if he's not hot, but when he gets hot, that's when he's most dangerous. So they can't let Aaron Rodgers get streaky. But for me, it's all about establishing the run game up front.
Yeah, keys for me offensively for San Francisco, they have to be the smartest team on the football field. Not just offensively, but defensively as well. If you go back and look at that matchup against Dallas, mental mistakes, so many penalties prevented them from being in position to really close that game out and win it. San Francisco in today's matchup, they have to be the smartest team. They have to play the cleanest football, and they got to create turnovers. They got to create turnovers on Aaron Rodgers. They got to give their offense extra possessions, and when they do get into the red zone, field goals won't get it done. They got to score touchdowns. And defensively, they got to find a way to harass Aaron Rodgers. Outside of harassing Aaron Rodgers, find a way to cover Davante Adams. Remember the first ball game, between these two teams, Davante Adams had around 10 to 12 receptions, over 130 yards. I remember that, very much so because I had him on my fantasy team, and he actually helped me win my fantasy game that week because of how prolific and unstoppable he was. San Francisco, you cannot allow number 17 to get double-digit catches again if you have any hopes in winning this ball game.
All right, so then let's talk about the matchup to watch, B-Mac. What's the matchup for you?
Ooh, the matchup for me is the San Francisco 49ers running game against the Pack defense. What we're seeing right now from San Francisco is consistency. And when you can run the football, that game, that style of play will follow you if you're playing home or if you're playing away. They have to find a way to generate that because Danny hit on a cool point earlier. You don't want Jimmy Garoppolo throwing the ball 40-plus times. So if he's not throwing the ball 40-plus times, get this, they're running the football well. If you look at the first meeting, they had 21 attempts on the ground for 67 yards. That's below average based on what they've been doing over the last few weeks, especially last week. So can their running game show up like they did last week against the Dallas Cowboys? And lastly, for me, the pass rush. The 49ers pass rush. The first meeting versus the Green Bay Packers in San Francisco, they only sacked Aaron Rodgers once. Aaron Rodgers was 23 of 33 for 261 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I just highlighted Davante Adams, how outstanding he was. They got to find a way to put pressure on Aaron Rodgers if they have any hopes in winning this ball game, similar to what they did to Dak Prescott last week. They sacked Dak Prescott 5 times, and outside of sacking him, they collapsed the pocket. They hit him a lot, and that definitely got Dak Prescott off rhythm. And because of that, they had so much success on Dak Prescott. They need the same type of vibe in today's matchup.
I love it. That's a great one to keep an eye out for. I'm going to look at another 49ers player in Deebo Samuel. Now, typically you give a wide receiver, you're thinking, all right, that's going to be a defensive back matchup. But for me, it's Deebo Samuel versus the entire Green Bay Packer defense, because I think he's the one player that could really do some damage for the 49ers. And he feels like he's the lifeblood. Here you see him coming out of the backfield on a handoff. So the linebackers up front have to make sure they know where he is on the field at all times. But he's also a great route runner and a receiver on the outside who can make so many plays. I mean, he's got great hands. He's got breakaway capabilities. So it's no matter where he is. He's a dual threat, whether he's with the ball catching it or as a receiver in the air. No matter where he is, the Green Bay Packers defense is going to have to make sure he doesn't break him. And I know it's a small thing, but I don't know if you guys saw the clip of the 49ers in Dallas coming out of the locker room on the way to the field. They had a boom box they were listening to music to. And the guy that was leading them out to the field was Deebo Samuel. I thought that spoke volumes. I think he's the lifeblood of this offense. Normally you might say it's a quarterback, but I think the offense goes as Deebo Samuel goes. They have to contain him, make sure he doesn't get any of those big chunk plays.
We're talking about the late divisional matchup on Saturday between the San Francisco 49ers and the Green Bay Packers. This is HQ brought to you by Papa John's. Better ingredients, better pizza. So let's get into the pick then. The Packers are 5.5-point favorites. It's the biggest point spread in the divisional round. The over-under set at 47, which is the lowest total of the divisional round. So, Danny, what's the play for you?
So I look at this number. I kind of like the Packers, but it scares me because it is so big. So I'm going to attack the total. And I'm going to take the under in this one. I think all the things we talked about with what the 49ers want to do, establish the run game, I think that's going to try to speed up the game. They want to try to keep the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands. And then defensively, they don't want to give up the big play. The 49ers don't. I think they'll be able to get enough pass rush that it'll be frustrating. But Aaron Rodgers is not the type of quarterback that's going to throw you a pick six. He'll remain patient. He'll take his shots for his big plays. I do think Aaron Rodgers will have a big game in this one, but I don't think this will be a shootout type of game. So I have the Packers winning, but I'm going to attack the total and say it's going to be a lower scoring under the 47 points. Weather factor, all the things we talked about, I'm going to go under the total.
Yeah, great minds think alike. Not surprised because me and Danny attended Florida State, best university in America. So it makes sense. But just to add a little more spice to the dish that Danny just served up for you guys, get this key weather stat for you guys. There have been 4 playoff games at Lambeau Field with a kickoff temperature below 10 degrees. Each game had 43 total points scored or fewer than 43. So then let me take another step further for you guys. Since 1960, there have been 17 games at Lambeau Field that have been 10 degrees or colder at kickoff. All 17 games have had 45 total points scored or fewer. Long story short, when it's 10 degrees or below, they don't score a lot of points in Lambeau Field. 17 games at Lambeau, 4 playoff games have all reached the under when you look at the total set for this ball game. And Jeremy, you said this is the lowest total out of all the games this weekend. That's based on the stat I just read to you guys. So what you guys should basically do, you should get some of the spices that Danny just provided for you guys, get some of the spices that I just provided for you guys, and put it all in one pot and create a nice, sexy breakfast.
I was going to say, he's making sexy breakfast. He's doing meteorological reports for us. Good stuff. They are resident quarterback Danny Kanell and our 2-time Super Bowl champion Bryant McFadden helping us set the table for a sexy serving of playoff football coming your way Saturday afternoon and evening. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, for more from BMAC, recipes, football talk, interviews, be sure to check out the All Things Covered podcast. He and Pat P breaking it all down. Analysis, opinion, interviews with players, staples of the program, along with their players-only insight. Download and follow All Things Covered wherever you get your preferred podcast audio. You can also watch them on YouTube.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.